welcome to the Holy Hour podcast. It's the bi-weekly All Cure podcast. I'm Gavin. Thanks so much for joining us. I hope you're doing good out there. We have a wonderful episode for you guys today. We have a sequel. Yes, the long-awaited sequel of Cure Encounters. Can't quite remember how long back it's been, but we did a wonderful episode where listeners like you sent in stories of your moments crossing paths and meeting the band. And it was a wonderful batch of Brush with Fame stories of meeting Robert and the crew out in the wild, after shows, hotel lobbies, a little bit of everything. And I knew there was way more stories out there, so I thought it'd be good to revisit that one and get some more Cure encounters. And this does not disappoint, you guys. I gotta tell you, you listeners, you pulled through. There's some great Cure stories in here, and I can't wait to share them. But before we dive into all that, Mixes of a Lost World will be out by the time you're hearing this. It's not out yet in real time here, but by the time this episode comes out, you'll hear it on streaming and hopefully have your tangible actual copies in your hands by then too. So I made some kind of note that they would ship on Wednesday, hopefully be in our hands by Friday or Saturday. Of course, I'm going out of town on Saturday, so it'll probably just be sitting in my held mail box there. But hopefully, with a little luck, maybe they'll show up right on Friday. My CDs I got, and nonetheless, the streaming will be there for the long car ride, and hopefully we got some cool stuff in there. Really don't know what to expect. As you guys have detected, I'm not really that big on remixes. I don't really have anything against them. It's just hard to get too excited for them. But, hopefully there's some good chances of some cool stuff on these remixes. There's about 3 remixes maybe for every song on Songs of a Lost World. So statistically, we have pretty good odds of like something being pretty cool on here. And if not, it's still going to be fun in a, cool mixed up kind of way just to hear it. Anything official and new, I'm all for. So bring it on, I guess we'll get into all the nitty gritty of it, but it'll be a little sad maybe if this is like all we get all year, but beggars can't be choosers, right? So give it 2 full weeks there and hit you up with a good review episode, hopefully next after this one. And we've all had time to absorb all the beats and the bleeps and all that. So look forward to it, and we'll do our best to sum up all that is Mixes of a Lost World. I had posted an announcement. I don't know how many people caught on to this or what, but long story short, friggin' Spotify, who bought out Anchor, podcast hosting site, used to be called Anchor. Spotify bought it, and maybe a couple years back now. And I've been kind of like suspicious that something like this would happen, but they started flagging stuff hardcore as far as using music, and usually I was able to catch it if I had like, they only give you like 2 days notice or something to change the file, redo whatever the hell's in there, and then repost it. And I was able to stay ahead of it for a bunch of them and fixing it and getting ones out. But then I must have just missed it. Somehow the email didn't go through to anything that was like a main email. I checked and I didn't even get a notification, but they removed like 47 episodes of the Holy Hour from the main feed there. And by removed, they didn't, like straight up, the window passed to fix them somehow. So I missed the whole damn thing somehow. And they just took them right off, deleted them. I'm like, what the fuck is that? Or at least just tell me that like 47. I was just scrolling through looking for a reference, I think, for something for this episode, and realized that like every 3rd episode was missing. So I'm going to re-upload them. Fear not. It's going to be a giant pain in the ass, but I'll do it. I got to get them back up there. I can't just leave them out. I'll have really good episodes too. So I'll do it the way I did when I was uploading initially the old YouTube ones, if you remember back then, the slow process. So because I got to get into the session, transfer it not only from GarageBand but into Logic now, so it's got a little bit of transfer there, and then I got to swap out some songs, and then I got to re-upload it with a new description. So it takes a little bit of time. It's not just clicking a button or two. It's definitely a bit of a process, and I got to do it for like 50 some episodes pretty much. I already got about 8 up again. Tried to prioritize with like album ones and the better ones. So we'll see. But I guess what I'm telling you, this is all my problem, I know. But patience. And if you are a newer listener and you hadn't heard a lot of those and you're in the process of combing back through old stuff, they are still up at YouTube, though, which is the irony of that is crazy that somehow YouTube is the solid base now. But yeah, they're over there, so you can listen to any missing pieces over there until I get them up, or just be patient, and hopefully I'll have them up before too long. But yeah, I really apologize, and it really pisses me off, but I'll try to save this from being just a giant rant about that. So that's what's going on. You're not missing them. They just got deleted. I'm telling you, they're not there, kid. They've been blown up. So we're going to restore them, though. So I'm not going to let Spotify beat me. No way, man. All right. On top of that, we got a wonderful episode for you guys. We're talking Meeting the Cure. Have you ever thought about it? Have you ever wondered what it would be like? Of course you have. And I don't know, though. I mean, there is a valid part of me that's like, I don't know if I'd really ever want to, but I'm sure if the opportunity presented itself, you know, it would just be too risky to like have it go horribly wrong, you know. But I don't know. I guess given the situation, I would probably run with it. And I don't know what I would say, though. I probably would just say like hey, thank you so much, you know, try to make it as sincere as possible, which, you know, we have some of these Cure encounters are just that, where it's just the idea of saying thanks, you know, because they've given us so much. Without getting overly cheesy right on the top here, you know, these songs mean the world to us and really have helped us through, not in just hard times, but in great times, happy times too, and been a soundtrack for our lives. So, I mean, that's a big deal. So I would love to be able to thank the creator of these tunes. But at the same time, if he's like, fuck off, I'll be like, ooh, it'll be terrible. So maybe it isn't even worth it. I don't know. But we'll see. The only chance I ever really came, the closest one I had was 2019 when I flew out to Austin City Limits for that crazy just shotgun festival thing. And I was back in the airport again. And somehow Reeves strayed from the pack, I guess. And I saw Reeves, and he was hustling to get to the terminal there. So part of me was like, how many chances is this ever going to be? I could just say, hey, great show. It was the next day. And but he looked tired. He was dragging ass. He had a little bit of a limp. I was like, God, just don't bother the guy. I didn't want to bother him. So I chose not to. I gave him like a little hey, and I think he knew, so he was probably like, oh God, here comes another one of them. But just kind of gave him the little hey, cool, man. So yeah, I don't know. Do I regret that? Probably. Well, let's hear people that did make the dream happen. That's why we're here, right? And we're going to kick things off with our good buddy John Roberts from Down Under. And I'm going to spoil this. Not only do we get one Cure encounter out of John Roberts, we get 2, maybe 3. Oh my God, is he the luckiest man in the world? Possibly. So let's hear the first one from John Roberts himself. Cure Encounter 1.
G'day Holy Hour crew, how you going? It's John here from Melbourne, Australia. Just wanted to add my 2 cents in for the Cure Encounters episode. First time I met the Cure was in 1992's part of the Wish tour. There was a radio station here called Triple J that had a competition called Beat the Drum, and the main prize was a trip to Lollapalooza, and the second prize was backstage passes to see the Cure. So to do this, you had to promote Triple J in front of as many people as you can, and then record that and send that in. So I dressed in a bear suit that my sister made me, similar to the Why Can't I Be bear suit, but it was black. And I made a banner that said Triple J and went down to Burke Street in the city and just waved it around, acted like a dickhead. And yeah, it's pretty funny. I was about 17 at the time. Yeah, so I submitted that. And then the day they announced the prizes, I didn't win. And I was gutted. So they played Mr. Bobolina, which I hated. So I turned the radio off and went back to bed. Next thing you know, my friend was calling me up saying, John, you won. I go, what? No, I didn't win. He goes, no. After that, when they came back, they said, and they've got a very special prize for the sickest Cure fan in Australia, John Roberts, me. And then, yeah, so I was pretty happy, as you could imagine. So the day of the concert came. There was actually 2 Melbourne shows. We'd already purchased tickets to the first Melbourne show, and lucky enough to get 3 rows from the front. Not bad for my first Cure concert. And the second night we saw them was the night we had the backstage passes for. So as part of that, we got free tickets as well, which was pretty cool because I couldn't really afford to go to 2 shows being 17, no job. Anyway, backstage, it was pretty wild. Can't remember it fully because it was a long time ago. But yeah, basically remember Simon and Perry were playing pool together when we first walked in and almost jumped on them. I was so excited. They came over and said hi and posed for photos and signed my Wish Tour program. They were very friendly, especially Perry. Perry was really nice. I remember that. Then went over to Paul, who was okay with having his pictures taken and signing my program as well. And then out comes Robert, looking very shy and sheepish. I just remember him looking so big, but not fat, just bigger than life. I don't know if it's because I was so used to seeing him on like records or CDs or on posters, but now he's this, full life-size person in front of me. That's pretty cool. So he was happy to pose for photos and sign I had a jacket with a back patch on. He signed that, and he signed my backstage pass, and he signed my tour program. It was so good. I can't even remember what I said to him. I was just probably a blubbering mess anyway. And then it was that was it. They ushered everyone out, and the door we came out was right beside the stage, so we just darted off into the audience and got pretty much 3rd row from the front again for the second night in a row. And it was an amazing concert. That's it. Was lucky enough to see them 2 other times as well, but maybe I'll save that for the next Encounters episode. Thank you, Gavin. I love your work. See ya.
Oh man, how cool is all that? That's about a dream scenario right there. So all thanks to that bear suit. And next Encounters episode, that could be 3 years from now. So let's just hope that John Roberts will share another Cure Encounters story with us. What do you know? But this one was an email, so I have to do my best dramatic interpretation here as I read, in the voice of John Roberts, his next Cure encounter. My second Cure encounter involved the same bear suit. and a different radio station. It was from the Bloodflowers tour. I was at work, I'm a carpenter, and was flicking through either Beat or Impress on the local music street presses here in Melbourne, when I saw an advert for PBS, a community radio station, offering the best Robert Smith lookalikes the chance to win tickets and a backstage pass. And it just happened to be that day, so I excused myself from work, hurried home to dig out the old bear suit and tease up my hair. I'm not sure if I put on lippy or not. Then I headed down to St. Kilda, where PBS was based at the time, and when I got there, there was about 5 or 6 dressed up, so chances were good. I thought there'd be a line out the door. Someone from the station came and said we all look awesome, and we all won backstage passes. The day of the concert and the meeting is again a blur. We had a few drinks at a friend's place beforehand, and I may have had a few too many. So my memory of the actual meetup isn't the best. But my wife, who was my girlfriend at the time, and I went to the tennis center where we saw them in 1992. We had to meet somewhere inside the venue, then someone came to grab us and take us in. I remember the other people that had won had disappeared, and I thought, oh no, we had been left behind. But ended up finding them, and I remember feeling a bit pissed off that they didn't tell us that they were leaving. Backstage, though, it felt like a frenzy. Well, to me anyway. I was so excited. I was bouncing off the walls. We eventually said hi to Robert, and sorry, my memory of the meetup after that is pretty vague. Oh man, well I can't blame you there, but I've definitely been there. And if you don't remember it, then obviously nothing too horrible must have happened, right? So I'm sure it was a wonderful encounter. Damn, that bear suit is worth its weight in gold. I asked John if he still had the bear suit, and he said, yeah, I do somewhere, and actually redug it up and sent me a new picture of how that bear suit is holding up. It looks good. He should save it for the next contest. I'll post pictures of that on the Facebook page so you can check it out too. And I thought that was it for John for now, even though I had the feeling he probably had a few more stories up his sleeve there. But sure enough, I get an email from another Australian, and he shares a wonderful Cure Encounters story. But then I found out afterwards that he's buddies with John, and there's more to this story. So let's just go in order as we get an email from Richard about his Cure encounter. My story is from Adelaide in 2000 during the Bloodflowers Dream Tour. I met some fans while we were waiting for the band to turn up for sound check. We didn't meet them, but we decided we would wait for them to leave and follow them in the car. We followed them to some upstairs bar in Adelaide City. We went in and they had a private space. Eventually they came out, and with them was Robert's parents. I think our jaws dropped and we couldn't quite believe it. There weren't many people in the bar, and the DJ was playing Cure songs, and someone from the band's crew asked them to stop and just play other stuff. There were some pool tables, and we started playing next to the band, while people went and spoke to the band members. I remember walking up to his folks and saying, hello, and they were so nice, but looked like they didn't really want to be there. It was surreal. I bought Robert a VB, Victoria Bitter beer, but unfortunately, because the bar opened it, he didn't drink it, but he politely said, thank you. They ended up leaving, but Perry and Roger stayed a little longer, and we finished with photos and signatures, and we all left happily ever after. This was my brief meeting with Robert and his parents. So, of course, I wrote back to Richard to thank him for his wonderful story and laughed that, oh, what a bummer it was that he didn't drink the beer he bought for him, but I hope he didn't waste the beer and still drank it because it's delicious beer. Richard wrote back, "Yeah, I did swoop in on the Victoria Bitter after he left, drank it, and still have the bottle." So yes, good job, Richard. And then Richard continued that he has a good friend named John Roberts that we just heard of from earlier, Patreon member, longtime listener and friend of the show. So he says, "Yeah, I have a great friend, John Roberts. It's sending you a story of how he met Robert in Melbourne's airport after I tipped him off." And I was like, wait a minute, we don't have that story yet. But here's the backstory to it. I work for a company that distributes Schecter guitars in Australia. At the time, they had just released Robert's signature model, and we got 4 guitars. I bought the very first 2 that arrived in the country. A friend bought the third, and the last one went to Perth in Western Australia. During the 2007 Aussie tour, I had the guitar signed by Robert in Sydney and was flying back home to Melbourne the next day. I got to the airport early knowing the band would turn up. The staff had worded me up on where the band would arrive. It's not where the general public arrives. Sure enough, they turned up, hopped out of the van, and there was only me and a friend there, so Robert wasn't getting hassled. I spoke with him about my guitar and that he had signed, and I asked him about the prototype Schecter Bass 6 he was playing on stage and some of the issues he was having with it. Got some more stuff signed and photos, and then they went through security. I knew they were flying on the flight before me, so I quickly rang up John Roberts and said, "Get to the airport now. The band is on this flight number, and you can meet them when they arrive." So that's the backstory of how John is going to meet The Cure in the Melbourne airport. And sure enough, I was about to write to John and ask him, "Hey, can we get that third encounter story out of you too?" And he beat us to the punch. He said the third time he saw lightning strike, see what he did there? When The Cure came back to Australia in August 2007, we had to see them in Sydney. And this was because the night they played in Melbourne, we were flying out to Thailand for a holiday. So we booked our return flights to Sydney, but no hotel. We thought we'd save the money as our return flight was very early in the morning. And we got to Sydney really early so we could line up for the general admission area, and we wanted to get as close as possible to the front of the stage. There was a bit of a line, but I don't remember it being too big. When it was time to head into the arena, though, we got to the doors and then bolted to the front. The whole time the security guards yelling, "Walk, don't run." But no one paid attention to that much. We were lucky enough to grab a spot at the front of the barrier, right between Robert and Simon, my personal favorite spot to be. The show was amazing. They were quite different as a 4-piece. The crowd was crazy down the front. Lots of people trying to push forward. We were so squashed. I remember letting a short girl stand in front of me so she could see better, and I was bracing myself on the rail a lot to stop her from getting squished. I managed to score the set list for the main set. And when they finished, we left and headed out for some Chinese food. We were so hungry. Before heading back to the airport, we thought we'd be able to sleep on the seats there, but when we got there, the whole airport was shut down. So we huddled up in a bus shelter and instantly regretted not booking that hotel. Once we arrived back in Melbourne, and after we caught up on sleep, we started packing for our Thailand trip, and I received the call from my friend Richard and fellow Cure obsessive, telling me that he had just had a nice conversation with Robert about guitars. I was so happy for him and jealous. The Cure were in Sydney Airport, ready to board a plane to Melbourne. So Richard was calling me up to tell me what flight they were catching and that we should go to the airport and try to meet them. And that's exactly what we did. We looked at what time it touched down and then headed out to the airport to try our luck. We looked at which gate they arrived at and made our way down, half expecting it to be writhing with Cure fans, but it was just us. The doors of the plane opened, and out they came. We couldn't believe it. Simon, then Pearl, and then Robert with a bodyguard. Simon pointed at us and said, "Hey, "You were down in the front last night." I couldn't believe it. He recognized us. We then spent about 5 to 10 minutes walking with them to the front of the airport where their van was waiting for them. During the walk, I was talking with Pearl, and my wife was talking with Simon. Pearl was lamenting that they were missing their son's band playing a gig back home. And Simon spoke about his passion for mountain biking. I asked if Simon had a pick on him, and he pulled one out of his pocket and gave it to me. Along the way, the band, crew, family members stopped outside of the Virgin Megastore, I think it was that, for a big group photo. It was like a in-joke or something. When we reached the front of the airport, I asked if they wouldn't mind signing a few more things, and Robert signed my Cult Hero single, and Robert, Simon, and Pearl signed my Join the Dots. I also got a street press paper autograph from my niece as well. And that was that. We wished them a great show in Melbourne and waved goodbye, and then floated back to our car. John Roberts. All right, that's what you call good teamwork right there. So thank you guys, John Roberts, Richard. You guys are awesome, and I appreciate you sharing your stories with us. As we move away from Australia, let's head on over and catch up with Craig, who you might remember from episode 199, where Arusha and Susie and Craig and I talked to her friend Ian about his bootleg journey of listening to every Cure bootleg that he had. And it was good to hear from Craig again, and he has some wonderful Cure encounter stories to share with you guys. So let's dive straight into it.
Hey Gavin, thanks for allowing me to share some of my Cure encounters over the years. I give a little bit of background of me as a Cure fan. I discovered them in 1988 when I saw the Why Can't I Be You video on MTV. And it was like nothing I'd seen before. Actually, my first thought when I saw that video was, man, these guys are really British. Like with Robert's voice and the Humpty Dumpty guy running around and everything. That was my first impression. But I did like the song, and a friend at school who was into the band gave me a Standing on a Beach cassette tape, and I listened to that a lot, and then also Kiss Me on my Walkman, and I got into them that way. And then I was waiting for Disintegration to come out, and when it came out, listened to all of that, loved it, obviously, incredible album. And then I went to my first show, which was in Phoenix on the Prayer Tour. And the thing I took away from that show is it was incredibly loud. It was outdoors, but it was so loud that a speaker caught fire during the last song, Killing in Arabic, caught fire over Poral's head, and they had to put it out. But, luckily it was the last song, and they finished up. So that was kind of what made that show memorable. And what a great song for a speaker to catch fire. It was a crescendo at the end of the concert. It was so cool. And, after that show, I just really got into them. I started listening to all the albums, and the rest is history. So at this point, now I've seen them 56 times in 6 countries. So over that time, going to all those shows, I've been fortunate to have several encounters with the band. Some of them were short little photo ops or signing something with other fans around, which is fun. But a few of them were longer encounters where I was able to sit and talk with the band members for a while. And that's a really special thing. So the most recent one I had was back in the Euro 22 tour. So my wife and I flew to Italy to see the 4 shows there. Neither of us have ever been to Italy before. So it was kind of a tourist trip with the Cure shows at night, and we went to all 4 of those shows. So the encounter happened when I was traveling there. We flew from LA to Bologna through Munich, and it happened to be the day the day after they had played Munich. So I'm sitting at the gate after the long flight from LA, like half asleep, just sitting there waiting for the next flight. And I look up and Simon Gallup is walking towards me in the terminal, and Roger's also with him there. So I quickly woke up and jumped up and said hi to Simon and got a quick picture. And Roger was interacting with some other fans, so I didn't speak with Roger, but I was there with Simon, and I asked him if they were going to play Faith, since I had heard that they had been sound checking that at some of the earlier shows. And he said maybe. And then sure enough, they played it for the first time on that tour the next night in Bologna. So that was amazing, because, you know, you're flying to another country to see The Cure, and then The Cure is right there in the airport with you. It was kind of shocking. And, you know, that Euro 22, it might actually be my favorite set of shows that I've been to, because, you know, as we all know, the band sounds amazing these days. And the sets over there were so good. I mean, they played Faith that night in Bologna, and they played it 3 out of 4 of the shows I went to in Italy, which is, I mean, that's one of those bucket list songs that I like to hear live. So I couldn't believe it. But the encounter that I had with Simon in the airport didn't end there. They were actually on the same plane as us, and it was one of those small little commuter planes. So, you know, we boarded the plane together, and I sat a few rows behind Simon, and I spent the whole flight just kind of staring at the back of his head, the flight from Munich to Bologna, and kind of wondering if the whole thing was a dream. So what a great way to kick off that little mini tour of shows, to arrive there with some of the band. Another one I'll mention that was a bit unique was back in 1995 when I met Pearl Thompson while he was on tour with Page and Plant. So this was also back in Phoenix. I didn't actually go to the Page Plant show, but knowing that he was playing with them, decided to go over to the closest fancy hotel to the arena, hoping that maybe they were staying there. So I went over there and was just waiting outside in the, you know, kind of the valet area, the area where you drive up. And pretty much right when I got there, there was a bus there, and walking out of the bus is Robert Plant. And he was there. He had a little fruit drink in his hand, and he was sitting there talking to his wife or girlfriend next to the bus. And after a couple minutes of that, I figured, well, I'll just ask. And I'm probably the only person in the world who has asked Robert Plant to go get Pearl Thompson to meet him, which is funny, right? I mean, Robert Plant is obviously a mega star in music, and I just want to speak with his guitarist. So he was really cool about it, really nice. He actually had an assistant go find him, and he was not outside at all. He was actually up in his hotel room for the night. But he came down, he came out of his hotel room outside. It was a nice night. He came all the way down just to talk to me, and we talked for probably half an hour, just out there. And he was the sweetest guy. You know, we just talked about different things, about how it was going on tour with Page Plant. I think I fibbed and said I went to the show. But yeah, I learned a few things about what was going on with him at the time. He mentioned that he, you know, had been working on some art projects. He mentioned that he was a Portsmouth football supporter. And this was around the time, now this was May of 1995. So Wild Mood Swings was being recorded. I think they were halfway into recording Wild Mood Swings. Pearl seemed like he wasn't completely connected to what they were doing, but he did talk about it a little bit. At the time in the press, I remember Robert saying that Wild Mood Swings was going to be ambient types of music, and Pearl said that, well, when Robert says ambient, it's probably not the ambient you're thinking of. It's not ambient dance music. It's more acoustic guitar ambient. So maybe Wild Mood Swings started with songs like Bear, Jupiter Crash, This Is a Lie, the songs in the record like that. Maybe. And Roger had rejoined in February, and Pearl had something to say about that. I was wondering whether I should share this or not, so I looked in Curepedia about this, and I guess it's been public information. Robert mentioned that Roger had originally left because of tensions with Simon and Boris. But what Pearl had told me was that he was really surprised that Roger returned to the band because of animosity with Simon, which, that's all water under the bridge these days, right? It's been a long time since he's been back in the band, so whatever was going on there is long gone. But yeah, it was really nice speaking with Pearl for such a long time. He was so gracious, and I can't believe that he actually came down from the hotel, and he did remember that speaker on fire at my first Cure show, and so that was cool that he remembered that. So those are the stories I wanted to share. And thanks a lot, Gavin. I wanted to thank you and the guys for the podcast. I know a lot of work goes into it, and I find it to be a great source of information when there's Cure releases and tours going on. But even when things are quieter in Cure world, I enjoy listening to it. I learn a lot of things there. Even though I've been a fan for a long time, there are always more interesting things to learn, and your podcast has done a lot of that for me. So thank you. Take care.
Appreciate you listening. Thank you so much. And wow, so much great stuff to unpack from your Cure encounters there. I can't get over the PA blowing up and catching on fire there during Killing an Arab. How cool is that? I think I have a new time machine show that I want to go back to just to see that happen. And super cool to hear that Pearl was super cool. And coming down from the hotel just to hang out and talk for a minute, that's great. More than a minute. Sound like you guys hung out, like a real hangout. How fucking cool is that? So, very nice to hear. All right, for our next Cure encounter, we head on over to Sarah, a longtime listener and friend of the show. And we get another little 2-for-1 deal out of Sarah here. So let's hear how all this awesomeness goes down. On August 25th, 2004, my biggest wish in this lifetime came true. I met Robert Smith. It was the day after my 25th birthday. Two of my best girlfriends and I took a girls' trip and flew from our hometown of Las Vegas, Nevada to Phoenix, Arizona to see The Cure on the 2004 Curiosa tour. On the plane ride there, my friend, who works in production, mentioned that her friend that was working the show owed her a big favor and that we might end up getting all access working crew passes. As not to get my hopes too high, she said that there was no guarantee that we would be able to meet the band, and it all depended on what they had planned for after the show. I squealed so loud right then and there on the plane that there was even a sheer chance that there might be a possibility. After their amazing performance that night, we hung out by the gate that her friend had told us to meet him at, and we waited, patiently waited. Then, he led us through a locked gate and led us to this outdoor cabana-like area with a bar, tables, etc., and a decent-sized group of people just hanging out. I have, since then, starred the exact location of the cabana on Google Maps. We got a drink and sat down. It was fairly dark, but we were looking around, and all of a sudden, Simon goes walking right past us. All I could do was wave and say, hi, as he walked by. I was in utter shock. We went back to the bar, and a few stools down from me, I see Jason Cooper just chilling. Once again, I muttered, hi, and waved. A couple shots of tequila later, and nervously discussing with my friends what the hell I was going to say to him, I finally got the courage to casually approach the area where Robert Smith was. He was squatted down, similar to the way that you mentioned in the last Holy Hour episode of how awkwardly he was sitting in the ground during the MTV Unplugged rehearsal scene in Play Out. He was playing vinyl records with a small group of people sitting on the ground all around him. He was playing 1979 by the Smashing Pumpkins. How appropriate. The year that I and The Cure's first album were born. I slowly walked up to him. I squatted down, shook his hand, looked him in the eyes, and just said, "Thank you." He was like, "Thank you?" My shaking voice said something like, "Yeah, just thank you for your music. I'm a big fan. Just thank you." And he said, "Well, you're welcome," with a slight smile. I got up and slowly walked away and over to where my friends were waiting for me. Once we walked a good distance out of sight, we had to play it cool, as we had to act like working crew. I bawled my eyes out. It was so surreal and beyond amazing. And of course, back then, no smartphones, no cameras allowed in the venue, so all I have is this memory, but it will live with me forever. I have to recall this memory and share it every now and then, so it stays fresh in my mind. It was seriously the best day of my life, next to my wedding day and birth of my boys. Thank you for providing me with yet another opportunity to share it. And if that experience wasn't awesome enough, believe it or not, we ran into some of the guys at the airport the next morning. This time, I had my cheap, fun Saver camera on me, and I approached Roger, who was super sweet, by the way, and we actually managed to get a picture with him, Perry, and Simon. See attached picture. I'm the one in the red tank top, and we all looked so hungover. Robert was standing quite far away from them, leaning against a pole with his sunglasses on and on the phone, as appearing not wanting to be bothered, so I didn't push my luck. And after this whole experience, I was literally on a body high that would last several days, and even decades later now. I'll never forget it. Fast forward to November 2016, I had the pleasure of meeting Lowell and Pearl at Lowell's book signing at Zia Records store here in my hometown of Las Vegas. It was so epic. I got pictures with them. They signed my Cured book, my Standing on a Beach vinyl cover, and the inner sleeve of my pornography cassette tape. They were both so friendly and lovely to talk to. Thank you, Gavin and Holy Hour. Sarah. All right, thank you so much, Sarah, and good to hear that you landed that sincere thank you to Robert Smith that I always dreamed of. So really good to hear. And while we're on the topic of Lowell, let's continue with a little more Lowell love. Some might say that doesn't happen around these parts very often. So let's see what happens when Shirley crosses paths with Lowell Tolhurst. Hello, Gavin and Holy Hour listeners. This is Shirley. My Cure encounters are a little adjacent in that they're not directly with current members of The Cure from back in the day, but from the last 2 years. My in-person encounter was with Lowell Tolhurst in June 2024. Lowell and Budgie, the former drummer of Susie and the Banshees and the Creatures, were on tour for their new project Los Angeles, a drumming and keyboard project, after doing the podcast together, Curious Creatures. I was really excited to learn that they were on tour for a few shows with Mickey Bereni of Lush, Peroshka, and her newest return to music is Mickey Bereni Trio, also known as the MB3. And they were coming to Chicago. It might have been announced around winter of 2024. This was my year of The Cure, 2023-2024. Having seen The Cure finally for the first time in June and then at Riot Fest in September. At this time, I was having fun catching up with Lowell's memoir and Mickey's, fingers crossed. and I couldn't believe I could see them both at this small venue for what, $30 or so? They opened for 6 of Mickey's shows on that tour, and the penultimate show would be in Chicago on June 7th at the Bottom Lounge, which I had not been to yet. It was a Friday evening, and I was actually going by myself. I wasn't sure if I would be in a position to see Mickey or have my book signed, but I brought it anyway, and I even had a few blank book plates just in case. But I contemplated that I would just go and enjoy the show. For some reason, I thought the show started a little earlier. I calculated in traffic, but it wasn't too bad and found street parking, and got there about 6:30 when I strolled up to the entrance. Doors were at 7. When I got to the venue, there were like maybe 7, definitely less than 10 people waiting outside. So I was like the 8th person in line. It was a beautiful night, and I was like, oh wow, I guess I'm pretty early. I wonder if the show sold out. And like I said, it's a really small venue. Parked right on the street by the main entrance was a black tour bus and trailer. Just a few minutes later, as more people lined up behind me, who comes out? Lowell, wearing a black short sleeve t-shirt. I think someone else was with him too, maybe with the keys to the bus. They climb aboard the bus, and then he comes out with a garment bag. His outfit for the show, of course. I'm not sure if anyone up front stopped him, but I was so pleasantly surprised at his sighting. It was a cool way to start the night. With all the anticipation of just seeing him on stage, it was fun to see the casual moments. I was able to snap my first picture of the night of Lowell, though it may be a bit fuzzy. So we get into the venue after 30 or so minutes outside. It's actually a restaurant/bar when you first enter, and then a line to present your ticket for the show, and then you go behind another big door, and it's this large open space for standing room general admission. There's another bar on the right, and the stage is on the same side. So I get in there and can walk up to the edge of the stage and see the setup with the drum kits and all the equipment. I probably could have stayed front and center, but it was still barely a crowd, so I will walk to the back where they were selling merch to scope it out. There's a poster and tote bag for Los Angeles, and more signed posters, t-shirts, and CDs for the MB3. When I walk back around to the front of the stage, people have claimed the center spot. People are still trickling in since the show doesn't start till 8. At one point, this is the Lush encounter, Mickey was walking from the entrance where we came in on a diagonal path to the backstage, looking down at her phone, probably trying to make it to the backstage unnoticed. Then this man and his son were standing near me and stopped her to chat. She mentioned about posting something on social media. She was really sweet, and I stood right there, a little starstruck, just observed and smiled along to their conversation. Turns out he brought a pedal of some sort, and he was a musician too, and he wanted her to sign it, and that was fun to watch, and I was happy for him. Then the show finally started. Both sets were absolutely great fun. I was still able to snag a spot in the front at the rail and kind of off to the left side of the stage. So mostly I had a great front row view, but it was a little off center, and probably because of my height, my view of Lowell when he was sitting at the drums was slightly obstructed, since it included a symbol bisecting his head. So that was a bit of a bummer. Next to me was another woman flying solo, and after a while we chatted a little bit in between songs and at the break between sets. Although she was a Cure fan, Lush and Susie and the Banshees too, she came to the show on a whim and actually didn't realize that Budgie was Budgie, but knew of Lowell and Mickey. We're probably about the same age too, Gen Xers reliving nostalgia for the music of the 80s and 90s. We were like, why don't we hold each other's spot? If you want to go get a drink, we could do that for each other. So it was great to have a spot for each other. And then either I asked her name or maybe she asked me, and we were like, wow, what a crazy coincidence. It's not a common name, and so now there are two Shirleys standing at the rail for the show. Back to the show. It was great. Such energetic drumming, and we were having fun. Budgie had his black gloves on. They played 8 songs. Next to the last one was a cover of A Forest, the Hydra version, with Lowell back on keys. I think it got mixed reactions, but still, the audience loved it. And then the show was over. It was like, wow, what do we do? We're still standing in our spots by the stage in the post-show glow. But then I realized that quite a few people were prepared to get autographs and brought little stacks of records and t-shirts and books. And they were ready to wait. This turned out to be a great spot for it. We were in the path of the backstage door. And all of a sudden we look up and Budgie is the first to come out, and then Lowell. And we were just like, oh, hey, hi there. How are you doing? Thanks for the wonderful show. It seemed like they just wanted to come out and say hello to everyone who was there. Then people were asking if they would sign their items and take photos. So I'm like, oh, sure, why not me too then? And I queued up and got a one-on-one with Lowell of The Cure and Budgie. It was so surreal because it felt like they should be mobbed by people, but it was very low-key. I was probably just like the third or fourth person in line to just kind of chat them up. And I said to Lowell, oh, I just finished reading Cured, but hadn't read his latest book, Goth, A History, yet. And how I was looking forward to reading the latest. He talked about how he's really enjoyed the writing process and sharing stories, and loves books and libraries, and how he has a friend in the suburbs of Chicago. And I said, oh, like I would know who that person is, but who is it? What's his name? Now, of course, I totally forgot about the name or what it was. My mental note was clearly not enough. It was just nice to chat with him. The dude in front of me had a pile of stuff and was a longtime fan of both bands. He had Budgie signed Banshees and Creatures albums and t-shirts. He also happened to be Filipino, so he's talking with Lowell about his wife Sydney and Filipino food, and asked him what his favorite dish was and if he eats pancit. It's a noodle dish. It was pretty funny, but Lowell was really good at making small talk. I also met Budgie, and we talked about how his young kids were and how he's now living in Germany, and I told him that my daughter is taking German in school, and he's like, oh, well, you don't really have to learn it formally if you're in Berlin. Everyone speaks English. So it was just nice, like surreal, that we're just standing around, just chatting. And I didn't have anything for Lowell to sign. I clearly forgot about those book plates in my bag. So what do? I pull out Mickey's book and flip to the back page and ask him to sign it. I kept thinking he must think I'm really strange. I head to the merch table back and I decided to buy a tour poster, which is unsigned. And they were like $10. So they both signed that, and Lowell started to write with a pen, but then the pen didn't work. And I snagged a silver Sharpie from someone else. And then we got a couple pictures. I missed the chance to have a picture with all three of us together, since many people were starting to line up to greet them. At one point, Lowell said, well, I'm working on another book right now. And Budgie said he's also working on his memoir, which I found out will be released this July, and called The Absence. So that's kind of my long-winded account of our brief encounter. Actually, it wasn't that brief. It was just kind of unbelievable because there weren't tons of people that stayed behind. Shortly, Mickey came out, and I didn't notice Ollie and Mick, her bandmates, to say hello, and chatted for a while too. We hung out, and she posed for pictures and signed items for people as well. So I got to meet her and get her book signed and some more pictures of us together. When it finally started to clear out, I was a bit sad for the encounters to end. Walking out of the venue, I saw that the tour bus was still parked right there. I knew that they were headed to do the finale show in New York, and they were actually going to pick up the bus there. An overnight bus ride from Chicago to New York. And when I left, I saw Lowell was talking to the bus driver, and I just kind of waved to him, and he's like, oh. But then he came out, and I guess the bus driver had a bunch of mints. Those soft, puffy kind of mints. He was like, here, I have a gift for you. So he gave me a mint. And I was like, oh, okay, thank you. And then let me get one more final picture. He was standing outside the bus, and then Mickey comes out and Ollie. And I have this really funny picture of them making a face with me before they head out to do this long bus ride. Hopefully they got some sleep on that bus before they did their last show for the tour of Miracle. So that's my long-winded story of meeting Lowell, Budgie, and Mickey on the night of their penultimate show. The whole experience was lots of fun, and I'm looking forward to when they come back. Maybe I'll stand in line, get a book signed or something, and they may or may not remember me. Thanks, Gavin. Love the show. Love you guys. Chaz, Antonio, and Donald from the early days. Okay, take care. Shirley. All right, thank you so much, Shirley. I love a good play-by-play of an evening, and you delivered. I really appreciate that. And glad that it was such a fun, eventful evening for you. All right, as we're winding down now, guys, I got a really special one for you here that I wanted to share. This one is from the man himself, JC, and this is his very first of many Cure encounters that not only did he cross paths with the band, but it just happens to be at a screening of In Orange. And that would have been an amazing story in itself. So let's hear it from JC. I had started living in London in November 1986 and moved to Maida Vale in March 87. I heard about the screening through NME and Melody Maker, but did not have a ticket. I remember going on the NB6 bus down Edgware Road around 7 p.m. and looking around the Odeon, but there was no one around. A bit later on, as I was standing by the cinema's entrance, a girl asked me if I had an invite, and I said no. She said she had a spare and gave it to me. I was so happy and ended up waiting until 11 p.m., if I recall properly, before the band arrived. They all fell out of the black cab, and I vividly remember Simon swigging white wine out of the bottle as he stumbled out. The movie was great. The Odeon back then was the largest screen in the UK. I remember a bunch of people dancing between the front row and the screen on what could have been Play for Today. At the end of the screening, I waited with fans, most of them swamped around Robert on the front row. It was overwhelming. I moved back and found Lowell, Boris, and Porl away from the crowd, and I had a quick chat and my invite signed. While later I found Simon and Robert, and they signed it too. They had In Orange posters stuck to the entrance wall, and I tore one down. Still have both the invite and the poster. Went home late, but over the moon. This was my first time meeting the band as I was 19 years old, and that was just an incredible evening and a great memory. Man, that must have been so awesome. Thank you so much for sharing, JC. As we start to wind down now with our final contribution to Cure Encounters. This one was more of a conversation via Instagram turned Cure Encounter story. I got talking with Andy Todd, and he was sharing some photos of crossing paths with the Cure and giving the backstory of these photos. And kind of compiled that into a little nugget for you guys here of meeting the band. So let's hear from Andy and the origin of some of these photos that you've probably seen online at some point or another. I do have this memory in Austin, first time meeting Robert. The Cure stayed at the Four Seasons Hotel. That evening, Dave, we call him Autograph Dave, unrolled a huge poster of the infamous Robert and Susie black and white photo. Robert noticed it and refused to sign it. There were lots of photos taken. However, a disgruntled girlfriend of my friend Steven opened the camera and exposed the film. She also destroyed another roll. The next day, we met the whole band post-show at the mansion in Dallas. That evening, Robert picked Mary up and swung her around in a circle before turning into the hotel. Perry sat on a wall embankment hanging out with the fans. Porl doodled on several record covers. Boris was kind of through the crowd inside real quickly. Robert was bombarded with fans. He was wearing a Smith jersey, which was given to him by Emmitt Smith of the Dallas Cowboys earlier that day. B. Stephen and I witnessed Simon and Robert earlier that day meeting Emmitt Smith. He pulled up in a white Mercedes. He had his wife and daughter with him, I believe. All the photos of Robert in that jersey were taken by myself or B. He later shared several of those photos with Pictures of You in France, who later tried to take ownership by watermarking our photos on her webpage and on Facebook. She never gave us credit, nor did she know any stories behind the pictures. Anyhow, later that evening, Boris, Simon, and Perry ended up at July Alley, a bar in Deep Ellum. Mary did autograph a Pictures of You 12-inch single, the green cover one, for Autograph Dave, and I do have all the negatives and pictures from any time meeting The Cure in Dallas. Many have remained unseen by public, except by what B shared with that chick from Pictures of You. There are photos from the following day of Robert Smith and Mary just before leaving Dallas on the bus outside the hotel. The guy who took those had been selling copies on eBay for the last 3 years or so. I created the Fall on Me Yum Instagram page to try to reclaim ownership or credit for those Robert Smith, Emmitt Smith jersey pictures. I figured it's a lot better when people know the story behind the pictures too. All right, thank you so much, Andy Todd. And I think you should go on over, if you're into the Instagram, follow that page for sure. It's fall_on_me, like the REM song, _yum, YUM. So go follow that page. There's tons of cool collectibles on there and pictures of these interactions and advertisements. So just a cool Instagram page to follow for sure. And thanks for sharing some of your personal photos with me too in the thread. I appreciate that. Well, guys, I think we're going to have to call it here. It's been real, but I think I've reached my jealousy mark for the day, and I'm not sure I can continue on hearing such awesome stories and not being able to contain my jealousy anymore. So, but in all seriousness, I would love to thank John Robert, Richard, and Craig and Sarah, Shirley, JC, and Andy, all for sharing their Cure interaction stories and meetings. So many great moments captured and good memories, as you said, and very cool. And, giving me the courage, if it should happen. I guess I won't turn them away now. I could probably manage a good interaction here or there. Maybe we could hang out, talk about Star Wars or something. All right, guys. Thank you so much for listening. Hopefully have that Mixes of a Lost World episode up next for you. And in the meantime, if you should be so kind, go check out the Holy Hour Patreon at patreon.com/the Holy Hour Podcast. And you can join the team. Be among these great people like Donna, Craig, Jeff Hilton, Jeff Cortland Jones, Sue, John, Alan, Allison, Dion, Namicio, Matt Ford, Tom Burns, Letty, John Roberts, Jason, Tony, Ben, Matt Fisher, Danny, Coulter, Tom Johnson, Francisco, Arno, Chip, Amber, Nicholas, Shirley, Jason Hall, Steve, Mara, Caroline, Brian, Sean, and Colin, and of course Kate over there at CureThreads.com, online shop with tons of original Cure-inspired designs on a wide range of products. Kate also runs Cure Arts Collab on Instagram, where you can find and follow and participate in all kinds of cool Cure-themed art assignments. It's a Cure art class that you dreamed of. Scott Krogert is co-host of the Sarlacc Digest, an all-Star Wars podcast that airs every Wednesday evening, 8 p.m. Pacific time on YouTube and Facebook, with replays everywhere that you stream podcasts. They're always serving up the best of Star Wars discussions, perfect for any level Star Wars fan. Go check out The Obsessive Geek. That's David's shop at Etsy, and it's packed full of tons of cool products created by David, including 3D printed recreations of Cure album covers and Boys Don't Cry keychains and other cool designs inspired by Labyrinth or Neverending Story. Everything is super high quality and affordable, so go do some shopping at The Obsessive Geek on Etsy. Dana is a super talented freelance animation, illustration, motion graphics designer, and she's currently open to new work and commissions. So check out her work at graphics.tv, that's graphics with an X, and spice up your business or passion project. Tanya would like to spread awareness of 988lifeline.org, suicide and crisis hotline, with over 200 call centers located all over the U.S., available 24/7, offering up free and confidential support for people in distress and numerous prevention and crisis resources. So if you or anyone you know is in need of help, please reach out. Tim is part of New Waterloo, an independent hospitality development, design, and management company that owns and operates hotels and restaurants all over the globe. Find those many locations at newwaterloo.com. Lisa recommends you check out Dickens up in Calgary, Canada. It's a great venue, delivering live music, drag shows, trivia nights, all kinds of cool themes. And you can find a list of upcoming events at dickensyyc.com. Or hit up the goth scene in Little Rock, Arkansas with Jessica, who recommends checking out clubnevermore.com to find an upcoming schedule of all their events. And of course, our buddy Chaz, he has his other podcast, The X Communication Station, where he and Chrissy take on the evangelical church, with new episodes dropping every Wednesday. So go check those out. And as you leave, go check out the Holy Hour official gift shop over there and see if you would be interested in a Holy Hour t-shirt of some sort. And all the links for that are in the episode descriptions and bios of all the social media whatnots. So go check it out. Again, a giant thank you to you guys that sent in your Cure Encounter stories, and everyone out there, please keep continuing to be patient with me as I re-upload so many of our past episodes, but they will not be forgotten, I promise. And take it easy out there. Go get your mixed pants on, and we'll listen to some remixes next time around. All right, catch you soon. You can email me at gavinconner@gmail.com if you have any comments, questions, or concerns. All right, talk hard.